Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux with producer Bobby helping us out for a preview of a very good sprint race we have coming up this weekend at Del Mar. It's the Grade 1 Bing Crosby. We take a look at the field. Ashley, you're lucky it's July because I don't do my Christmas songs when we're outside of December. Otherwise, I'd be singing some White Christmas here with Bing Crosby. But I will say, this field, I think you can make a case for 4, 5, maybe different horses in here.
Absolutely. And I think they're, in my opinion, more towards the inside. The inside six is
Yep.
probably where most of the focus is going to come in. Maybe a little left for the seven. The outside two, though, are going to be the bigger prices on the board. And it's a sprint race. We're going to talk about it. It always comes down to how this race is going to unfold early in terms of the pace. And I think that's where it becomes a little bit of an interesting race in terms of, do you think the pace is going to come back to them at 6 furlongs? That's a tough thing to assess.
And we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. I love seeing horses shipping in for races like this because we know the Breeders' Cup is at Del Mar. So a lot of these connections are thinking, hey, I can get a race or two maybe at Del Mar, make sure our horse is ready, primed for this division. And we see some sprinters coming in over here like World Record, Roll On Big Joe ships back out, Crazy Mason comes on over. And I could see them, I could see the pace really going either way, right? You have horses like Hejazi, World Record, Roll On Big Joe, Mbagnick, who all want to be close, but then a couple of them have shown they can sit off a little bit if need be. Big Joe can sit a little, the Hejazi can sit a little. So I thought it was kind of a little confusing pace scenario, at least for me.
I agree. And I think there are other horses in here that might want to push the situation. I mean, the four Smooth Cruisin' is a horse that I know hasn't been fast enough, but has been really close in those last two on quick fractions. So I don't see this horse being third last early on. There are other horses too. You go back, you just don't know what they're going to do. Even the horses towards the outside in here, I don't think Lovesick Blues as is quick, right? But in the case of Spirit of Makena, was part of the pace in the triple bend and backed
Yeah.
out of it. So I think they're going to go quick. I know this
Yeah.
doesn't say fast pace, and we're talking about California sprints, but I think early on this is going to be contested fractions.
And we'll meet the field here for the Bing Crosby, starting out with Crazy Mason, who has Elliott shipping out here to ride Crazy Mason, who was the Carter winner. And then most recently in the True North finished behind Bookham Dano and Mulligan. And those two horses came back in their next start to finish first and second with 111 and 106 Beyer speed figures. I think you might also be able to make an excuse here for Crazy Mason. This was on a sloppy racetrack. His running style probably isn't really suited as well for an off track when he has to come from way, way out of it. So he just seems like the kind of horse, Ashley, who you know what you're going to get from him. If they go really fast, he's a horse who you have to be scared of.
Absolutely. I think when you're looking at the winner, Bookham Dano, I was speaking of, being fans of horses, huge fan of him, just had a
Yeah.
career best Beyer of a 111 in the Vanderbilt at Saratoga over a fast track. When you look at that race, I thought it was a good performance. I think you see what you see from Crazy Mason. He's a closer. Do I wish this race was 6.5, potentially
Right.
7 for him?
Yep.
Yes, but I also think there's a case to be made where there's an East Coast 7 and a West Coast 7, and that
Yeah.
makes me think maybe a little bit differently. But I won't take anything away from him. I think if you think the pace is hot and that they are going to kind of come back to the rest of the field, out of the closers in here, I think Crazy Mason is the best one.
Completely agree. And he feels like one of those type of horses. If you're playing a pick 4 or pick 5, you probably have to use him because if there are versions of this race where they go fast enough and he comes running late, Dr. Venkman feels solid in here, Ashley. He's done his best running at Del Mar. All three of his career wins have been here. Most recently, he was in the Kelly's Landing. But I will say, he was just kind of beat on the square by Roll On Big Joe. I felt like in the stretch there, he ducked down to the inside. He had an opportunity, but Big Joe just really wasn't stopping that day. All that being said, Dr. Venkman is one that probably wants a little bit of pace to run out in here too.
Right, and he's going to have a big jump on horses such as Crazy Mason in
Yep.
terms of how it's going to unfold. I do think, you look at Roll On Big Joe and Dr. Venkman. Roll On Big Joe always had the jump on him throughout that race. He still ran his race. It was his first time shipping. There's the Del Mar angle. I mean, Dr. Venkman loves Del Mar. The lone off the board finish was in the Pacific Classic. So, that's at a point where they were trying something new. He was a good 7 ace horse. They pushed it. He was able to win at a mile and a 16th and a mile and a quarter. And in my opinion, it looks like now as a 5-year-old, they have decided to sprint him. And with that in mind, I know he's just got those 2 seconds this year, but he could get a perfect trip in this race.
Yeah, he feels just like a really solid measuring stick for this group. Hejazi is multiple grade one placed. He was off for almost a year and a half. Ashley, he was one of Bob Baffert's really highly regarded horses a couple years ago, early in on the Triple Crown Trail. But he's a horse who just didn't really put it all together. But he certainly has ability and sprinting right now. Second start back off the bench. He's a little bit intriguing coming off of his second place effort, which just felt like a race he had to need.
Yeah, you mentioned he was sort of hyped on the way to the Triple Crown. He was hyped ever since they paid $3.55 million for him, going all the way back to May of 2022. As we take a look at his most recent performance, he's got a long layoff that he has to run off of. To me, it's a good effort. Obviously, the winner he has to face again. As the run line says, he's denied in the end. He comes up a half a length short, but I like that his figures didn't, dramatically drop. It's a good starting point. He's obviously in a barn that knows how to have them ready to roll second off the layoff, but this isn't an easy spot.
No, but if we are looking at horses that can sit a little bit, I think he is one of them who might be able to sit just off and have some finish. Smooth Cruisin' is a tough read for me coming out of that 4-horse Triple Bend. He was a well-beaten third. His best race was on a sloppy racetrack a couple starts back. He certainly has ability, but I'm not sure if he's quite as good on these fast tracks as he was on that sloppy track.
And it's also worth noting he's a 3-year-old. He's going against the older males in here. That is tough. And you can see, obviously, they wanted to see where they could get him in his races and had to face, Barnes and journalism. And now they have cut him back in distance. It resulted in a very nice win, 2 back. But we're talking about sort of like a, allowance optional claiming event. He wasn't in for the tag. And then they put him in the Triple Bend and he outran his odds. But I think looking at Dr. Venkman and the separation between these two in the Triple Bend, it's hard for me to make a case for Smooth Cruisin', but it did say earlier when we looked at the time form pace projection, Gino, he could be trying to press the envelope early. I just don't know if he can contend with the other speedsters.
World record is a grade 2 winner. He'll make his third start off the bench. I felt like initially when I looked at this race, I was going to really like him. And then watching back in his Aristides, it's kind of a weird race. He went really, really fast in there, but he ended up losing to a horse named Durante, who his rival, Roll On Big Joe, ends up beating in his next start. I'm wondering with him, can he sit off a little bit, or does he seem like a horse who really wants to go? And I kind of initially was warmer on him, Ashley. And the more I look at this race, I kind of cooled down on world record a little bit. Where do you stand with him?
He's an enigma to me. I can never figure him out. I mean that in the nicest way possible. I just am never on him when he wins. And then, I'm on him and he doesn't win in races that I feel like he should win.
Like last time.
Last time you go back to Mahoning Valley, that's like sort of where I really started to realize like I can't figure this horse out. At his best, he can contend with these horses. We've seen the triple digit buyers. We've seen the speed from him. I think he has to go. And then I look at the Steel Valley Sprint and he looked like he was comfortable sitting just off of it. He made a run and then 2 others were moving better late. And maybe it's the track at Mahoning. It is a deep track. So maybe Del Mar, I think in terms of the way it is, might play for him. It's a new, track. He's never been out west, but I don't know. And what price is he going to be in here, Gino? That's the talking point.
Yep. And it seems like we're both kind of a little trepidatious on him. And then he's going to be a short price here. He's going to take some money with Pratt aboard. So if he, for some reason, isn't a very short price, I could absolutely see him winning this thing, but I'm looking for a little more value. And maybe we get it with Big Joe right next door, Ashley. This horse is just in such good form right now. He keeps showing up in races where it looks like there's other speed and it looks like he probably shouldn't win. And then he'll just sit off nicely and move to the front and like put away some of the others. And I kept coming back to him in here because I know he has speed. He can sit off. He can pass some horses. And I think cutting back to 6 furlongs, he'll have even more finish.
He's a cool horse. Go down the past performances, even races where he was 4th. You look at the types that he was facing. I mean, he exits a race, as a maiden, Speedboat Beach, Hejazi, Fort Bragg. And then from there, he was second, a distant second to Straight No Chaser. So he knows, what good horses are. He's been somewhat competitive. And then you talk about his recent form. Bob Hush Jr. has just done a fantastic job with him. And when we talk about, the pace of this race, he can sit the trip. He can sit second or third, maybe 4th if he needs to, and he can pass horses. And I thought his performance last time out at Churchill was really good. He needed to step up into the graded 6 waters once again and show that he could be competitive, and he did just that.
And we move to Mbagnick, who's a grade 1 winner in Chile, grade 3 placed in the US. We saw him beating Hejazi in that replay. I think it was a good race for him to face a horse coming off a long layoff because you knew he was going to be a little fitter. And I look back at the races, he's been behind Roll On Big Joe, I think the last 4 times they faced each other. So he's certainly going to have to improve and try to turn the tables on that rival.
Yeah, you feel a little bit bad when you kind of look at the claim last time out. He finally has a career best buyer of 100 wins for Jeff Mullins, and then bye-bye. They claim him, right? He's
Yeah.
expensive claim. He went to the front. To me, his best races as of now have been when he's been forward. It's interesting to look at him when he was down at Delta Downs. He was closing from off of it, but different sort of configuration than you get out west. And in these sprint races, going one turn, look at his last two, and then go to the second place finish 5 starts back. I think he has to be somewhat in the mix early to be effective, and that would obviously be a little bit of a concern in this spot.
Spirit of Makena won 4 of his first 5 races. He was a multiple graded stakes winner. And then he had some physical issues. You could see because time off and a lot of gaps. And in his last 5 races, he's 0 for his last 5. And you just see a lot of layoff lines. I do like that he's putting a few together, Ashley. I think that could help him and I could see him moving in the right direction. But I just don't know exactly how much we're going to get from him in a spot like this right now.
Yeah, I mean, going back to 2022 all the way until that break between May and July of 23, Spirit McKenna was in great form, was going to the front, being forward, but showed a lot of grit in those races, fighting to the wire or being able to draw clear. And don't know how to assess the last 4. Obviously, the one that was the best was the first off the extremely long layoff in the San Carlos. But that is always a concern, Gino, is that when you run so well, I'm not talking off of 6 months, we're talking what over a year and a half, basically around there. When you have to put in a big effort like that, I hate seeing the bounce race because it either is
Completely
that the
agree.
horse kind of fires the same race or they take a step backward. And he took a step backward. I don't mind the 2 months off, but I don't like when you go from a 93 to a 64. And again, look who he faced. I know they were better horses, but he finished last. He was well defeated, 13 lengths behind Smooth Cruisin'. I can't use him here.
Round out the field with Lovesick Blues, who is a 7-year-old with 40 races and 8 wins. Stakes winner, multiple graded stakes placed on the turf, but he hasn't really been on the dirt at this level in a while, Ashley. Like the bulk of his races recently have been on the grass. I'm not quite sure if he's at this level class-wise on the dirt.
Yeah, he's never faced this level on the dirt. In some of the dirt spots that he's been, when you go to the most recent dirt race, right, against the
Yep.
Calbred, low sal, different configuration, mile, long stretch. It's tough to see. This is a horse that I think, in terms of the Calbreds, I've always been a little bit of a fan of. You can't miss the gray, the turf form. Doesn't matter if it's on the downhill or just a 6 furlong distance. A really handy type, but tough for me to see. And I understand why connections kind of enter in these spots, right? You take a shot, but more importantly, you're trying to figure out who else is going. And if there's
Sure.
scratches, I hate to say it that way. If you don't win it, you're still picking up a lot if you're second or third. It's just tough for me to see this horse hitting the board.
Completely agree. And so as we move to selections, Ashley, it's a wide open race. I can make a case for 4 or 5 different horses that really wouldn't shock me, but you and I are both going to end up on the same one with the really, really sharp Roll On Big Joe.
And really the same 4 here. Again, just a
Yeah.
little bit of a different order. It's the form, it's the tactical running style. As I said, Bob Hess Jr. has done a really good job keeping this horse in good form, and they've kind of pick and chose their spots, but still been well traveled between California and Kentucky as of late. And I think he's going to sit the trip in here. If they go fast, he can just stalk the pace and make one run. And he's going to need to take a little bit of a step forward, I think, because I think this might be a little bit of a deeper test, and there's more horses in here. But I have a feeling he's going to run a big race.
Yeah, I think you were hitting on it. He's beat horses this good, but this is a really competitive race. There's it's probably as deep of a race as he's been in the last few. So Big Joe is the horse for me. Big Joe also the horse for Ashley. 6-2-1-3 for Ashley. 6-3-1-2 for me. Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck.